I'm a top 10 IBJJF ranked black belt, and I was just on the podium of IBJJF adult black belt pants. But just 7 years ago, I did my first tournament as a white belt. I recently went on a podcast where someone asked me if I started as someone who was very talented at grappling, and I didn't know how to explain how bad I was. It took me 3 months to learn how to do the line drills that we had at the time, especially because Granby rules were so difficult. But then I thought an even better way to show what level I came from was to review my first ever BJJ white belt tournament. I had been training 3 to 5 times for around 6 months, and this was in January 2019 at a Grappling Industries. For whatever reason, the absolute division always goes first, so this was my first ever BJJ match in the absolute division after 6 months of training. So here it is, and here is my commentary. All right, first match ever. So I start off with this like crazy crossing karaoke two-step, and my opponent is like, what am I looking at? In my mind, I had seen one of my other coaches do like a switching low wrestling stance, and I truly thought at that time that that's what I was doing, but obviously it was not that, and I did all of that to pull guard. And it's not even a guard, it's just like half of a closed guard. I think at this point I knew what a scissor sweep was, but I'm not doing it because I've got these crazy double collar grips and we're not going anywhere. I have no recollection of this actual match in my memory. The only evidence of this match is this video and the smooth count profile, but in my brain, like, none of this exists, especially not that double collar grip. And I think we're double collaring this entire match. Okay, we've let go of a collar because we're heisting. Heisting is very ahead of the meta, but I heist myself into a single leg. I'm not sure I know how to defend a single leg. I think I learned how to defend a single leg around blue belt. But we're into the crucifix, also ahead of the medal, and then we fall onto the mat, disengage, and we're back to hopping and two steps. Hopping, karaoke, two step. Hopping, and it's all gonna be for the guard pull into kind of half of an open guard. Straight collar, straight sleeve. Something I might do today. We've got a no arm triangle. No. I never submitted anybody with a triangle until early purple belt, even in training, so I know that whatever we're looking at here is not a triangle. Double collars. A mysterious open guard. I wonder if I couldn't close the guard because of like lack of hip or core strength or something, or if I just was like open guard is superior even as a white belt. Who knows? We've got feet on the hips. We're keeping her weight. This is really prime triangle and omoplata territory, but like I said, I truly did not finish a triangle until like 2 or 3 years later, like ever, let alone an omoplata, which is a much more complex submission. She's stacking me. Luckily, I think at this point my opponent was also like pretty brand new to jiu-jitsu. I looked at her smooth comp and that might have been her only tournament ever. So it was both of our first time competing. And it looks like it's both of our first time competing. Sleeve grips. I don't think I played double sleeve until brown belt. And so it's very interesting looking at all the things that I'm like naturally trying in my panic state, but obviously not knowing like what to do with it. Tripod sweep? No, there's no way. I've also learned how to do a tripod sweep many times, but I never actually thought about the sweep as something that I would use until I started teaching it, and that was also around purple or brown belt. I am super confused about why I don't want to close my guard. I'm pull it up. Nope. No way. Double collars. We're back to double collars and feet on the hips. You can see on my face, I'm like really struggling. And so even though this match looks like nothing to me from the outside now, I must have been feeling the tax of 5 minutes of fighting for my life. I was so relieved to get this decision. My first match is always the most important. I think it usually sets the tone of your whole competition day. And so I was really glad to win that one. As you can see, I was supremely untalented, and there's pretty much no technique that you could possibly take away from watching that match. But I do remember going into that competition feeling very confident because I thought of myself as an athlete. I thought that I would be athletic because I had trained badminton pretty seriously for like 8 years before that. Badminton, by the way, has zero skill transfer to grappling. When I look back at that match now, obviously the jiu-jitsu is really embarrassing, and I've probably watched that match maybe 10 or 20 times in the past couple of years, just as like a throwback activity, and every single time I've watched it, I haven't been able to do so without laughing or cringing, and I still feel that way, but what I do see is someone who is trying very hard, and I still see myself as someone who tries very hard despite not having any talent in the sport. And I think that when you want to be competitive and maybe the best in the world, of course, talent does matter to some extent. But what matters even more is someone's ability to never give up, to think deliberately about positions and training, and to train with intention. And I think that while I didn't have talent, I did all the rest of those things. And that's how I ended up where I am now. When I look at my matches, even from 6 months ago, I feel not the same amount of cringe, but I do feel maybe not embarrassment, but regret about things that I did wrong, or maybe like false mentalities that I had going into certain matches. And so I think like the popular quote is, if you are embarrassed by the person that you were a month or a year ago, then that means that you have grown tremendously since then. And so I think as painful as it is to look back, it's a good exercise and an opportunity to reflect. I also hope that this video inspires anybody who's just starting out in jiu-jitsu as a white belt. Where you start has nothing to do with where you might end up. As long as you're practicing deliberately and training with intention, you can take any skill, not just jiu-jitsu, pretty much as far as you want to go as long as you don't stop.